Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of My Most Loved Fragrances. And as you guys who've been watching the other shows will know, we interview a fragrant guest, sometimes a YouTuber, but sometimes a brand owner or a perfumer, and it's more the case that it's going to be one of those today. And we asked them about their 5 most loved fragrances, cherished fragrances that have had a big impact on them. And in the course of doing that, of course, we find out a little bit about the person. It's sort of like a mini fragrant This Is Your Life. And today we have a guest that I'm really excited to speak to in this way for the first time, and that is George Zaharoff. Hello, George.
How are you, Dan? Thank you for having me.
It's a real pleasure. I'm doing great. How are things over there in Chicago?
They're going pretty well over here. I mean, considering what's going on in the world, we're doing okay as long as everyone has their health. And I think, this is the first time that you and I have we've spoken on the phone and we've had some, messages back and forth. But this is the first time I'm actually having a tete-a-tete with you, having a face-to-face. This is kind of fun.
Yes, it's a real pleasure, actually. And yeah, we've interacted a little bit, but yeah, it's really overdue, I think, that we do this. I know that you've been quite prolific in appearing on this kind of stuff on a few other people's channels, and you've interviewed people on your own. So I think you're just going to be a real perfect guest to have with a very interesting story, which we're going to find out a little bit more about, to do with the Zaharoff brand. Of course, for anyone who doesn't know, George is the head of the brand Zaharoff, a brand with an interesting and varied history, but one that is now going to be best known to all of us in the fragrance world for their fragrances, of which there are 3. But George has told me that he doesn't want me to go plugging them too much. They're going to come up in the course of the conversation, I'm sure. But just out of courtesy, I will link to the Zaharoff website in the description below. But let's get stuck into it then. So, George, as you already know, you're going to tell us about 5 fragrances, I think, or it might be 6, that you have found have been a big influence in your journey. Okay, that's the theme here. So I'm just going to let you take it away with the first one, or wherever you would like to start the story, please, George.
So fragrance number 1 is something that I was introduced when I was in grammar school. I would go to Greece. My mother would ship my sister and myself to my grandparents over the summers to Greece. And so there was one fragrance that I came across at Schiphol Airport, and I still remember opening the box in my seat on a KLM flight to Athens, was Chanel Pour Monsieur. And I loved that fragrance, and I wore it for quite a long time.
What a great place to start. Yeah, a total classic fragrance, first released in the 50s, and it's been going strong ever since. No doubt people will talk about reformulations and things, but to me, I've smelled it over the years, and it always smells really, really great to me. A beautiful, gentlemanly kind of scent. And like you, I used to wear that as a relatively young guy in my 20s.
You did? That's cool.
Yes. Yeah, so I share your taste on that one, definitely. And so you were wearing it at a pretty young age too, right?
Right, and that was the first fragrance that really introduced me to the world of luxury goods. And I say, my mother will say it created a monster, but it was an introduction to Chanel. I started wearing their ties because of that. And then, of course, I went to Hermes and Versace. And so it was really my first foot into the world of luxury goods and my appreciation for them.
Right, makes a lot of sense. And I think that's an interesting point that you make about luxury goods, because fragrance really is one of those really accessible areas of luxury goods, because some of the Chanel products, I don't know, the bags or whatever, some of the clothes are probably things that I wouldn't want to spend that kind of money on clothes too often. But even the average person or a young person maybe can get a fragrance, and it's kind of like that, isn't it? They're real flagships for these luxury brands, the fragrances. There's such a huge, I guess it all started as a little sideline, didn't it, for Chanel or Yves Saint Laurent, the fragrances, but they're almost like the biggest thing that these guys have now, aren't they, really?
Right. Calling cards are, fragrances are the calling card of a fashion house. And with that mindset, it's what has really has put when I've created or designed the packaging and the bottle and all that. In my later years, it was, to have it as a calling card to Zaharoff. Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get onto these in a little bit more depth, some of your fragrances, but yeah, I do really love the very distinctive design that you've got on the bottles. It's brilliant stuff. Okay, so that was a fantastic place to start. One of my all-time favorites too. So what's fragrance number 2, please, George?
So the number 2 fragrances that from grammar school through high school and into my college years would vary from, I like these beautiful unknown fragrances, and when I would travel to Europe, I would pick them up, like Leonard or Francesco Smalto, or an Italian necktie firm called Tino Cosma. And so I loved getting those unknown fragrances. Either they were not available in the U.S. or did not come into the U.S., like Moschino or Gianfranco Ferré. But the one fragrance when I was around my 20s, 21, 22, 23 was, and I actually think you really like this fragrance too, is the Boucheron, the Pour Homme, the Eau de Parfum.
Love it. Yeah, just got it a few months back and it is superb. Yeah, great choice.
Do you like those lemony lime type fragrances?
I do. Yeah, I really like citrus stuff all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm terrible for that. A lot of people are like, oh, this just smells of, bathroom cleaner. But I just love, I do love the zest of citrusy fragrances. And Boucheron it's got plenty of that, but it's also got this complexity and a rugged undertone and a tiny bit of an old school vibe. But it's really, really just beautiful, beautiful stuff. And yeah, I certainly am. It's incredible that such a lovely fragrance in such a great bottle is available so affordably still these days. And I haven't tried the eau de toilette, but I went straight for the eau de parfum, and it's just an absolute beauty, isn't it? Yeah,
it is beautiful. And and as we spoke about, we had mentioned earlier that not in this video, but also, I had the ancillary. So I would use the body balm, the soap. I had bar soap. I had liquid gel. I had, aftershave. So I had all the ancillaries in the Boucheron, in the Pour Monsieur, and it was just fabulous. I still love that fragrance. I felt like I was wearing a tuxedo in France.
Yeah, it's very much that kind of dressed up vibe. Interesting you mentioned about the auxiliary stuff, what was it, ancillaries, auxiliaries, those extras, the shaving balm and the shower gel maybe, and all that, even the deodorant. We don't seem to get those as much anymore from the big designer companies, and I believe you have a little bit of an insight into why that is. Is that right?
Right. The stores, once men's treatment started becoming more popular, and the margins are much higher, and so they got rid of the ancillaries. Is it called auxiliaries in the UK?
Yeah, ancillary. That sounds good to me. Yeah.
So I learned something. So the auxiliaries, or the ancillaries, as it's called in the States, the stores did not want to buy them. They didn't want to carry them, and so it wasn't worth holding on to them, because a small percentage would buy it, and now it would be even more. And I think it's the advent of the internet too, where you could find something in a store in Singapore and have it sent to Los Angeles. So right now, if you go into the stores, you won't see ancillaries unless it's part of a gift set.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, and now I'd always wondered why, because a couple of times I've managed to buy a vintage fragrance. I got an Armani Eau Pour Homme, and it came with a really amazing aftershave balm.
Right.
And I went and sort of tried to actually buy that separately when it ran out, but you can't anymore. But now we know a little bit about what's going on there in the industry. It makes total sense, because of course men's grooming in general has exploded so much, and with the internet they've clearly decided that there's more money in selling the specific brands that just do that kind of thing. But what a shame, because I wish I could get a Boucheron aftershave balm and shower gel for the full experience.
They made those in Switzerland. Boucheron did, and they were exceptional. A lot of these ancillaries are made in the same factories as they make La Prairie or the Lancôme products, and so it's a shame. You're right, and that's I went ahead and did a collab with a company called Gentleman's Knot here in the United States, and we did 6 ancillaries, and I was just very surprised that it was one of the, I mean, I don't want to say, I'm sure there's something out there, but it was like the first time that a fragrance had created these ancillaries in a long time. And so it was just unbelievable, the amount of how much unbelievable at the reception of it. So anyway, segueing back to what you were saying, the Boucheron really changed things for me. It had a larger impact. Because when I was around 23 years old, I went to Nordstrom with this little wood cap and a clay bottle and a little sprayer from, at that time, Quest, which was a boutique perfume house, a French one. And I said, I have this idea, I don't know. And it was the women's fragrance. And Nordstrom bought it just as a concept. And so when it came time to creating the packaging, I've had several incredible mentors in my life, and one of them, Mara Urschel, who at the time was senior VP of Sex Fifth Avenue, she said to me, "You can't reinvent the wheel; just make it yours." And so that has remained in my head. It's like you can't recreate a shirt, but you could change it to make it a Zaharoff shirt. And so I went with the Boucheron. If you look at your Boucheron bottle, so this is the women's, and it's a shame that it has worn off, but I don't know if you could see it. If you look at the women's, you see the Zaharoff, the Z, and the Eau de Parfum.
Yes.
It's even a metallic. You see how the Z glosses when I move it around? Do you see that?
Yeah.
If you take your Boucheron Pour Homme, you'll see that it's the space and all of that is almost identical to the Zaharoff. I used the Boucheron Pour Homme bottle and the printing, and I used the Boucheron as an inspiration as a template for the Zaharoff female fragrance.
Yeah, okay, I can see a little bit of that now. Yeah, but it's still unique kind of thing. But yeah, I can see the influence there.
Right.
The Zaharoff female fragrance, is that still around?
So the female fragrance was the first, and that's my number 3. The female fragrance has had a huge impact on my life, and so that's my 3rd fragrance. It was we launched it with Nordstrom, and it completely just blew up. We grew it to Nordstrom, Neiman's, Bergdorf Goodman, a couple other specialty stores in the United States, and then we started with duty frees in different countries. And so the women's is not available.
Right.
It was taken off the market in 2001 after 9/11. And so, yes.
Yeah, that's what I was just looking on your site, just because I thought maybe I've missed something. But yeah, that was your first fragrance release. As with so many fragrance houses, it will tend to be a female fragrance that people do first. So yeah, well, can you just give us a little bit? It's going to be frustrating because we probably can't try this fragrance very easy. Can you just tell us a little bit about how that one actually smelled?
So if you the signature, the Zaharoff signature, how it smells today, imagine a female counterpart. This one, the signature is a woody oriental.
Yeah, this is your maybe your flagship masculine fragrance now. Yeah.
And the female version of it is a floral oriental, and so it's I still refer it to the present because there's still bottles floating around on eBay and the such.
Oh, right.
It was it's a floral oriental, and it had jasmine and sandalwood and pink osmanthus, and it was just magical fragrance. And and so that's my true love is the women's, because I wanted to put together something. I was in a cafe in Paris and I was 23 years old. And I wrote, what's one thing that I could put all my dreams and visions into one thing and get it out into the world? And it was a fragrance. And so yes, the women's fragrance, which it started with the small one, and it ended up being a whole collection of almost, at any given time, 30, 40 different products, potpourri, shampoo, linen water, I mean, it was a tremendously successful fragrance.
Mm-hmm. And you'd launched that at that age in your early 20s.
I did. I actually started Zaharoff I was a junior at DePaul University, and I was going to Milan and Paris trying to figure out what to do. And when I graduated early, I actually moved to Milan, Italy, and we began showing in the Milan runway shows. So I started this at an early age. I've been doing this a long time.
Yeah. That's phenomenal. I mean, I guess it's a whole nother video and a whole nother interview, but just if you could just expand a little bit more about, like, because you're saying, oh, well, I just started a fashion brand, but that's not exactly that easy to do. So kind of what background were you studying something to do with fashion design, and how did you actually manage to do that at such a young age?
So my mother was a fashion designer, and so I was exposed to this at a very early age. And, you know, as a kid, you know, she was doing clothes for Dynasty and Dallas and Knots Landing, and when the Reagans were in office, for Patty Davis, the daughter. And so I grew up with all of that, and I think it was very exciting for me as a child. I also loved the world of commerce and the movement of goods and monies, and I found that very exciting. And so yeah, and I just jumped right in. I jumped right in. Yeah.
Wow, that is phenomenal. Okay, well, I love it. Okay, absolutely superb stuff. So I think that was fragrance number 3, right? The female fragrance, which was it just called Zaharoff for her?
It was called Zaharoff Pour Femme.
Ah, Zaharoff Parfum. Okay.
The Zaharoff Pour Femme for her. So Pour Femme.
Ah, sorry. Okay, Zaharoff Pour Femme. Guys, if you're lucky, you might find one on eBay. Yes. All right, brilliant. Yeah, fantastic. Okay.
And so during that time, the men's fragrance that I was wearing that was, you know, was the Escada, the Pour Monsieur. Was it Escada Pour Monsieur? What was it called? Or was it? I think it was Escada Pour Monsieur, right?
Oh, I don't know, actually. I'm not sure.
The original, the first Escada men's, I think it's Escada Pour Monsieur.
Okay, I'll just have a quick look.
Pour Homme.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah. And that's also an Italian lemon, cinnamon, nutmeg.
Yeah, I got it. Okay, I'm just seeing some lovely images of an lovely old bottle there. I'm not familiar with that one. So Escada Pour Homme. Oh, right. Okay, so around that time you were wearing that.
I was wearing that, and the women's fragrance had been on the market for 4 years, and I found myself in at a black tie in Monaco by invite of Prince Andrew.
Wow.
And at the table across from me was this gorgeous woman and this man, and we were talking, and I'm wearing my little tuxedo. She was wearing this beautiful couture gown or whatever. And I'll never forget it. Like, oh, have you met, I see that you've met, Monsieur Zaharoff. And then he turns to me, Monsieur, Zaharoff, this is Claude Paladin, the chairman of Escada. And I said, I didn't know that. I have to tell you, I am head to toe in, Escada Pour Monsieur, and the shower gel, the everything. I'm wearing Escada Pour Monsieur, and I'll never forget. The wife turns to Mr. Paladin and says, "How fabulous!" And that started discussions on Escada taking over Zaharoff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that one meeting, and so we launched the Zaharoff, which is the 4th. Is that the 5th? The 5th fragrance? 5th? No.
I think you've given us. Well, I don't know. It doesn't matter. The numbers don't matter.
Boucheron,
women's,
Escada,
you had the Chanel Pour Monsieur. Okay. So keep going.
The number 5 fragrance is the original. People online are calling it Zaharoff 99, and so this was the Zaharoff that was launched in 1999, and it was called. It was just simply called Zaharoff Pour Homme. And so this is the bottle that I designed. It's a little thinner than what we have today. It's a flask.
Similar, yeah.
Similar, yeah. And
Yeah.
so these were made by Bros in France. These ones were. And
Yes.
so this was also a huge thing for me because women, men's fragrance to women's is 20% of the women's sales, is how the retailers had, trended me. And so these started outselling the women's, this fragrance, when it first was, it had the oud, the sandalwood, all of that. And so
Yeah.
I didn't have enough to supply the stores. So
Right.
the men's fragrance didn't really get a proper launch because we were only able to launch in a handful of Neiman Marcus stores, Bergdorf Goodman, and some Nordstroms. And then during the discussions with Escada, 9/11 happened, and that just in 3 months I had completely closed the entire fragrance business down, just because of the severity of the loss to the partnership with Escada, who ended up filing bankruptcy themselves. And so it was a huge loss for myself, for Zaharoff, and my love of fragrance.
Oh, what a nightmare. Yeah, I remember you've mentioned that before, that the 9/11 thing hit you very hard. It may not be something you really want to go right into with me right now, but how exactly was that responsible for messing things up so much for you?
Because in 2000, when Escada announced that they were taking over the Zaharoff brand, as we went into 2001, the stores stopped buying the fragrances from Zaharoff, and they were waiting for the integration into the Escada system, because they were tied into Escada's EDI systems and all that. And so we had 40 staff of 40 employees that handled the accounts all over the United States. In the meantime, so there was no money coming in. I was waiting for a very, very large payment from Escada. They were going to open up 120 markets all over the world. And so at that time, I started working with Brioni and doing my suits, shirts, ties. And so the fragrances got set aside as the negotiations and the contracts and the lawyers and the trips to Zurich and Paris and all of this back and forth, until finally in 2001, in August, we got Vendor of the Year from Neiman Marcus, and from 120 cosmetic companies. And in September, I flew in from Portofino, from the Italian Riviera, and I'll never forget, it was the weekend, and I'm like, oh my God. I looked out the window and I said, you know what, I'll take the money and I'll go and I'll open, boutiques. I'll do this. In my head, I was 29 years old. And so I got back. My father's like, are you excited? I go, I can't be excited until I sign and I get the check and it clears in the bank, because I just wanted things to go smoothly. And I was getting ready to sign, and the phone rang in Chicago, and I looked at that time we had something called caller ID.
Yeah.
And it was my sister in California, and I'm like, why is she calling so early? And she's like, George, turn on the TV, and the planes were crashing into the World Trade Center. And it was after that, there was so much uncertainty that Escada put an indefinite hold on the transaction, which left me holding a bag of things that I could not recover from. Millions of dollars I just couldn't do it, because the retailers wanted me to come up with a game plan. I have gotten rid of all my staff. And so there was no infrastructure, and it was so difficult for me. But I tried to salvage it. I went to the other 4 brands that were interested in doing the transaction before I chose Escada, and it was more of, now you want us. Before you didn't want us, but now you want us. It was awful. It was an awful, traumatic experience for me.
Right. Oh, That is awful. Such bad luck. That is just terrible. I mean, fantastic that you've obviously bounced back, but yeah, that must have been absolutely unthinkable. Just awful.
And so I wouldn't be tempted to dump product into the gray market. I destroyed millions of dollars of product in a warehouse just so I wouldn't be tempted to divert or to try to sell product. And I focused on my men's clothing business, and I got back on my feet in about a year. I was back on my feet. I was doing what I loved, but the one thing that I wanted to do was revive the fragrances, and it was very difficult, which I'm now going to segue into my next fragrance.
Okay.
There was a period of time that I could not wear any fragrance. I just didn't want to smell anything. It was very traumatic for me. And the one fragrance that I started wearing up until the launch of Signature was the Hermes concentrate, the Dorage. And
yes. Yeah.
I love that fragrance.
Yeah, that is real. I got a little bottle somewhere, but it's not to hand. I think it used to be called Hermes Cologne, and then they changed it to Eau de Orange Vert. Is that right?
I love the concentrate.
Right. There's a different. Oh, okay. There's a different strength available. Okay, I'll look out for that. Okay, yeah. I really like the one that I've got. It's a very, again, a green, citrusy kind of things going on. But there's more to it than that. And Hermes have some absolute beauties. Actually, I'm very excited. Because after a couple of drinks on Saturday night, I stumbled across Hermes Rocker Bar from the late 90s for a really good price on eBay. And so I pulled the trigger on that one. So that one's coming in the post. So they have some beauties, actually, Hermes. Yeah.
Hermes is a beautiful fragrance. And then finally, when it finally came time to put together and, set aside the funding to fund the new men's Signature that we see today.
Yes.
Which you have.
Which was 2017, was it?
It was I think it was 2018, 19.
Okay.
It was December of 2018.
Right. Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
2020, or was it 2019? It was only a year. When I came last year, I think it was.
I'm going to look it up.
You're right. Yeah. 2018.
Yeah. I think you're right with the 2018. I'm just going to go on. You can't go wrong with Fragrantica.
It was December 2018.
Yeah. Okay. So this is your comeback basically into the world of fragrance. So is this your next selection for our list here?
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about that as we do that. Forgive me because 2018 anyway. So the perfumer for this one is Claude Deur.
Right. Was the original one, and I got to tell you the story about this one. So
he did the original men's fragrance too.
Right, he did, yes, and the women's.
Right.
So I've known Claude a long time, and when it came time, in my head, I was stuck on this reviving the original men's fragrance of '99 because it didn't properly get a proper launch.
Yeah.
And after 2 decades, a lot of things have changed. Quest was bought by Givaudan. Claude had left. I tried to find him, and I had in my head a relaunch of the original. And when Givaudan said to me that we don't have the formula, I'm like, what do you mean you don't? And so I had tried for 2 decades to relaunch something that I wanted in my head, and to be told to finally get it, because it's quite a bit of money. It's 7 figures to do the molds, and I had to buy the minimums and of glass and caps. I mean, it's a lot. You know how it goes. And so
not on that scale, George, but I can well imagine.
You have an idea of what goes into all of that. And to finally have all of that and then be told that it's not there, I cried. I hung up the phone and I cried. And I'll never forget, I tried to find Claude. I couldn't find Claude.
Yeah.
I was at LaGuardia Airport. I was talking to a friend of mine unrelated to the fragrance industry, And I'm
Yeah.
getting on the plane. I'm like, I can't find Claude. I don't know what I'm going to do. And she goes, what's his name? And I'm like, yeah, right. You know, like she's going to know. I go, it's Claude Durr. And she's like, hang up the phone. I know him. Hang up the phone. And so within
No
5 minutes,
way.
I was talking to him. I couldn't believe it. And
Oh
it
my
was,
God.
and I really, you know, what's interesting is that I had been mourning something that I had lost 20 years ago. And it
Yeah.
was something that I had to say, you know what? Just there's something better out there, and have faith. And that's what I did. And I worked with Claude, and that's how we got signature. So it's been
Wow. Okay. So, I mean,
it's been a journey.
did he have the original formula then?
So he did not. It was when so Quest, which was a very boutiquey. Do you know Quest? Are
Mm.
you familiar with Quest?
No,
Quest
I'm
did the
not. No,
F4.
no, I'm not. No, no.
Okay, so Quest did the Angel fragrances. They did the 24 Farborg. They did Curve, and so it was a very boutiquey specialty house, fragrance and flavor house. But when and they would write things on postcards. But when
Yeah.
Givaudan bought Quest and integrated the systems, Givaudan had everything on computer, and they couldn't find the postcards. So they tell
Uh,
me, therefore, the formula for both the women's and the men's are not there.
Christ. Right. So, it's, what you've done then with Claude Dare is just to sort of recreate a new fragrance, but in these, is it somewhat in the same vein as the original, or
Yeah,
just
look, my background is, or my background, and from my travels. Actually, before, it took a year to find Claude, and
Mm.
so it was during that time that I was collecting my oils, and that's actually had Nick come with me and record the journey of the fragrance, and that's where Elixir of the World comes into play. And then when I met Claude, I said, Claude, these are the oils that I want. And he goes, let me work on it. And then he created Signature.
Brilliant. Okay, so it's a new fragrance, but yeah, it's in many ways, I guess, some kind of continuity with the one that you released way back, but this is a new thing. So I really think that this is a superb, very unique smelling fragrance. I'll just give, because we haven't talked much specifics here about fragrances, so if you'll forgive me, you've got a top note of cardamom, you've got lavender, black pepper, there is pear, cypress, ginger, blonde cedar, oud, iris, fir balsam, pimento, creamy and very beautiful sandalwood, patchouli, black amber, myrrh, and frankincense. So I think we could definitely say this is an oriental scent, could we?
It's an oriental wood. People, because of the lavender, people will say that it's a barbershop fragrance.
Yeah,
but I wanted an ode to the new and the old, because Zaharov has a history. The Zaharoffs have a history of their own, which I won't get into. And so I wanted New World and Old World to bridge it. And I see the Signature as a symphony, and you're able. I realize it's such an exceptional. Such an exceptional. What's the word? The foundation, that if I were to increase, it's like if I were to increase the sandalwood and remove some things, it comes out with Royale. If I remove all of the herbaceous notes, it becomes Noir. And add Tonka. And so, the next one is Rosé. If I add, and so if I add, rose to the Noir, because I've been wearing this like I'm just, this fragrance is just spectacular, and this comes out in June. And
wow, okay.
Yeah, and so yes, I'm excited about that. And so I didn't like the idea of having flankers initially, but I didn't realize how beautiful you could come up with whole new fragrances.
Yeah, we've got these two flankers, and they are actually true flankers, because I really could detect some of the original Signature in each one. So I didn't know what to expect. I thought maybe nowadays, of course, people do flankers that are completely different, new smell sometimes. But in the case of these two, to summarize, I guess we could say Signature Royale leans a little bit more fresh, Would that be correct?
Right. I added there is citrus, and I accentuated the Australian sandalwood, so it's a very creamy fragrance.
Okay, yeah. And yeah, I noticed you got some citrus and apple and juniper in the top there.
Right.
So I definitely get that a little bit additional of some freshness in the top. But it certainly has this this continuity with the original signature.
Right.
So it's a proper flanker, which I like in the sort of true sense of the word, the traditional way that you took the original smell and you give us a kind of a new take on it. It really does that. And then the noir, I guess we're kind of going a little bit in the other direction, a little bit darker. And how would you describe that one?
So the noir is the one that smells closest to the signature, and it's just removal of the lavender. And, you know, I toned down. What I did was I removed all the herbaceous notes completely, and then added some back, or increased that. I put some tonka bean into it. And so the noir is a woody, darker fragrance, even though someone might say it's a little bit more fresher. But for me, when I say noir, I meant it's a wood fragrance. It's more woody. And so now what all these fragrances could be interchanged. Like if you wear signature during the day and you're going out, it's noir. And then, you know, Royale, you could layer all these fragrances, and they work absolutely beautiful together.
Yeah, yeah. There's a definite continuity between all three, and actually, I think I was my first preference was maybe of the two flankers for the Royale, but that's because I'm a sucker for freshness and that kind. I love all that, and that's really, I mean, it's by no means like just a sport flanker or something. It's still got all that complexity and a lot of the things that people recognize in the original signature, and then noir. You definitely do pick up on that tonka. It's just maybe a little bit even more seductive and a good night. Yeah, it's the more sensual, sexy of the three, maybe. Yeah, yeah.
The noir is meant for you to wear to a bar and have someone come and speak to you close to your ear and smell you.
Yeah.
So it kind of says, "Take me home," or "You want to take me home."
Yeah.
And so. And a side note, the Royale, the original Royale, was meant to be something else. The one that it ended up being was the Santal. I was going to do Zaharoff Santal.
Oh, okay.
That's what that is.
Right.
But the inspiration between the Royale and I don't know if you're going to edit this out or not, but it was literally a man coming out of the shower smelling fresh, and then doing coming together with somebody, and the natural smells that a man has when that happens, that clean musky scent, was the Royale original. And my partners had a heart attack because they thought that it was off brand, and they're like, "What are you gonna do? You're gonna tell people that it smells like after fuck, you're gonna say to people?" And so I changed it to the Santal, but then I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna do it anyway. So there's actually a Royale X coming out.
Oh wow, okay.
And it's gonna be an underground fragrance. It's not gonna be the fanfare, or it's just gonna show up on the website, and it's just gonna be, but it's gonna be adults only.
Okay, so the one that's going to have that similarity to the smells of amorous activity, is going to be the X version. Awesome. Okay, I think we can leave that in if you're happy to. I think that's a really good story. Okay, we'll look out for that. And there's a rosé version coming out soon too, in June. Yeah.
The rosé is coming out in June, and
fabulous.
If I could find this quickly. So just to give you an idea, how about that?
Yep.
Hold on. This is just a so without the marker, this was when I was designing it.
Oh yeah, okay.
Can you guys see it? Oh,
yeah. Pretty well. Yeah. Brilliant.
So it's gonna have one of those, and it's gonna look like it's gonna come in the packaging like in a 1980s porn shop, in a bag with a thing on it saying adult.
No.
I'm gonna do it like that. I'm gonna have fun with it. It's gonna be like, you didn't want me to come out with this. Well, here you go. It's in your face now, So I'm excited for you to smell it, Dan.
That sounds
You're gonna
brilliant.
love it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the memories of pawn shops will bring back many happy memories from my youth. So that's fantastic. Yeah. All right, I love it. A bit of raunchiness at the end there. All right. Is that the end of the? Have we come to the end of the
Yes.
choices then?
Yes.
Okay. Well, George, it was absolutely fantastic to have this interview with you.
Thank
And
you.
I think with you, you know, sometimes I'm very much kind of being the presenter and saying, right, we'll do this, and now I'm going to ask you this. But with someone like you, as perhaps I should have expected, you took over and did it in your own way, which is fantastic. You told us a great story. I feel there's a lot more I want to kind of know about some of these years that you didn't mention in the Zaharoff brand and your history. But well, maybe we'll do another interview another day. But it's been really good to find out about the fragrances. Some beautiful, beautiful choices. And
Thank you, Dan. And
guys,
Dan, if I may,
check out
one thing, you know, I think
yeah.
so you kind of understand the love and the passion and the
Yes.
respect that I give to this space with the content creators, because you guys are the future of this business. But also when you have 20 years of sitting in bed saying, if I am able to bring these fragrances back to market, I'm going to send a postcard and sign every single one. I'm going to let people know that I'm so grateful for them giving me the opportunity to live my dream. Exactly. So all of these things that you see is the love and the care and of a man wanting to be in this space. And so that's what I wanted to add, now that you know the whole history or most of it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's very interesting that you're very much into interacting with the online people, with the YouTubers and that kind of thing. And of course, you do have your own YouTube channel, which I'll also link, where you've done a kind of review the reviewer thing, where you interview YouTube reviewers, which is you know, really, really different to some of the other brands who perhaps haven't caught up with the significance of YouTube and all this stuff yet. But you're very pro that, which is very interesting. Yeah,
it's coming though. They're coming.
Yeah.
This is
okay.
This is the future. You guys are the future of this business.
Well, if that's the case, George, then you're in big trouble. But you know, we got to embrace it. So let's hope it's going to be a bright future. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Dan.
I hope that I'll talk to you again very soon. And it's now time to say to viewers, see you in the next video. Remember, guys, whatever you're doing in life, let's project. Bye-bye.